So one of the things is that there is less attention to excellence. And when we talk about excellence, we're talking about someone demonstrating excellence it doesn't come from a certificate. It comes from the ability of a person to demonstrate certain that prove that this person is capable of doing what they are required to do. Now, because there is compromise in terms of excellence, that is why we have had people come into a job using the certificate. But if it was going to be based on excellence, it will be that the qualified, that is the person who is able to demonstrate these skills, is the one who gets in, irrespective of where he or she comes from, irrespective of the faith, irrespective of parentage. Now, this is not the case in most situations. People get into jobs because because they either have somebody in the system and this person says, oh, this person is qualified, but there is no test. An evidence-based test is what we should be focusing on. So let's say when Soludo was the CBN governor, there was the time many young people who came with first class from their universities or second class upper got into the banking sector. And for me, I knew so many of my mates that were attended university who ended up in the banking sector who had not imagined that they were going to work in the banking sector. They were tested on the evidence-based system that the banks at that time had developed. And when they proved these skills, they were trainable. Yes, because to go to the university is to change your mindset. It's just for you to have this universal idea. That's where the word university comes from. So we go to the university not necessarily to train on a particular subject area so that we come out and work in that subject area. Yes, for me, I didn't even train as a teacher. I went to study English and then I became a teacher. I got trained in the course of my work and I acquired the other additional skills. But for the language, I had to prove at the beginning that I had the command of the language. Imagine that you are a person is a graduate of English, and you ask them to make a sentence, and they can make a correct sentence. And yet, they will get employed into your place. And when we are talking about discussion in the English language, we're talking about we're talking about concord. That is the agreement between subject and verb, and we're talking about tenses. Once you take out this, you don't have the language. So if we are going to read, going back to Professor Chefu, that he said we're in transition, the transition should start where, in this country, it is the person who can do this work that gets it, irrespective of where they come from. Yes, you are required to present a certificate. So if I'm going to employ a teacher, for instance, at a secondary school or primary school, I will definitely prefer a graduate of College of Education or a graduate of university from the Faculty of Education. But then that is not enough that they come and say, I attended this college or that university. They must prove to me that they possess the requisite skill to be able to teach at the level that we require them to work. That was how we came about the reforms in the education sector. Basic education, where we now have early childhood education. Before, we didn't even have teachers who were prepared to teach at that level. Now we have these teachers, but do they possess the requisite skill? Can they teach at that level? Or now going back to the last speakers, he was talking about the synergy between the facilitator and the learners. With all fairness, most learners come to our institutions with no interest at all of learning any new ideas. Their interest is to get a certificate. That's why at the point of graduation, as it is called, I used to say this when I was at the College of Education in Gidanwa, that when the churches or the Muslim groups will be organizing Thanksgiving for the learners who have finished and they are going home, they call it graduation. And I asked them, who brought you to this school? We are the ones who gave you admission to come and study. how can the mosque or the church graduate you? It's not possible. We will have to graduate you. We've not marked their scripts. And then they are telling the world that they've graduated. Because it is just a period that they are counting. I've stayed in this institution for 3 years. Let me go home. But what am I going home with? So this is where the problem is. We have to get back to the point where excellence is not compromised at all.
But you talked about